Welcome to First Thursday. This is November. I see a bunch of familiar names on and a bunch of new names. So there's quite a lot of people on this webinar. I welcome you all. This is a webinar that really I'm excited to do because I get these questions all the time, and you're going to get these questions all the time as well. And you probably already are if you're already doing the asset protection. So just hang on and enjoy, because this is going to be the top 10 questions that we get as asset protection planners. Of course, my name is Douglas Lodmell. I am the co-founder and managing partner of Lodmell & Lodmell and the founder of the Asset Protection Council, who is, of course, the sponsor of this webinar. So the top 10 questions that you are going to get ask about as an asset protection attorney. So let's just roll them. Of course, clients understand the risk of litigation. This is a preface. They understand it. They're asking to be informed about it. They're asking to be educated. How do I know? Because they're going online, and I look at my web stats every month. We're talking thousands of visits a month from people trying to get informed about asset protection. Our message to you as an attorney with a practice is that you need to be the source of that information. Don't leave it up to your clients to figure it out on their own on the internet, because if you are not the authoritative source on the information, they're going to go find somebody who is. And sometimes they're going to find a good person, and sometimes they're not going to find a good person, and you'll be cleaning up messes. On top of that, of course, why wouldn't you want to be directly involved with their asset protection planning? This is a great source of revenue for you to build your practice, and it's an incredible service to provide for your clients. It's also a great practice area to expand your marketing into. So if you're not doing that, I really encourage you to do it. We have a lot of support in that area. You can contact us directly. Say, hey, I want to schedule a call with Ben Lodmell. I want to talk about marketing. I want to talk about sales. How can you guys help me? And we'll be happy to do it. Okay, first question is asset protection legal? You probably already have gotten this question. You might have even asked it yourself at one time or another. So the answer is yes, it's 100% legal. 30 years ago, that was a little more of a question mark. Was it legal? Well, we didn't, really have any clear authority on it. We had a statute drafted in the Cook Islands that said it was legal there, but we didn't have any U.S. court guidance on whether asset protection was going to be seen as a legitimate planning area or a temporary fad that gets tossed in with evasive tax planning and all the other crap, especially because the initial asset protection did originate offshore. Cook Islands was the first jurisdiction to pass a statute, and so there was a little bit of skepticism. Now let's fast forward 35 years, and we can be absolutely sure that it is legal. We've got 24 different offshore jurisdictions that do it, and we have 17 U.S. jurisdictions that have passed some form of asset protection trust legislation. We have lots of guidance from courts saying that this is a legitimate practice area. The American Bar Association has a committee on asset protection. There have been 2 journals that have focused on exclusively asset protection. And so there's no question about it. It's legal. Of course, it's got to be done correctly. And if you want to distinguish legal asset protection from asset protection which is fraudulent or something that's not asset protection masquerading as asset protection, you simply say, is there a tax motivation to this planning? And if it's offshore and there's a tax motivation, now we're not talking about asset protection anymore, even if some planner or promoter is calling it asset protection. So that's what I always help clients. I say, look, if it's tax planning, it shouldn't be called asset protection. And if it's tax planning involving some offshore scheme, then it's probably not legal. But true asset protection is tax neutral, and it is using the laws of all the jurisdictions available to us to create a barrier to protect a client's assets. And it is absolutely legal. You can feel confident about it, and you can feel confident to tell your clients that that is the case. So, number 2, I thought my revocable living trusts protected my assets. Why do I need another trust? This is really common. A lot of people feel like they have done asset protection because when they did their estate planning and they were told that the best plan is a revocable living trust, and it's going to protect your estate from probate, and it's going to maximize your estate tax exemptions, that sounds a lot like asset protection. So in their mind, they're like, oh, it's going to protect my assets. So they really are confused. Clients do think, I have a trust. I've heard about asset protection trust. It's a common mistake for us as professionals to assume that clients have any information whatsoever about what we do. I think it's much safer to assume that they have no information about what we do. I mean, zero. And so most people don't understand what they have, if they have a revocable living trust or an LLC or a partnership. And so you're often going to get questions about, is my revocable living trust asset protection? I thought it was. And the answer, of course, is it's not. It's protection from a death. It's death planning. It's going to pass your estate. It's going to maximize your estate tax exemptions. It's going to protect your assets for your kids if you put spend-through provisions and you meter out the money over the years. But it's absolutely, for sure, not going to protect your assets from your own creditors. What I found is that they get it pretty quickly. I mean, the clients, they may not understand it coming in, but they're not stupid. They're not crazy. They do get it. And once you tell them, they go, oh, okay, well, I thought it was. Okay, I'm glad I know it's not. What can I do? And now you're into an asset protection conversation. Okay, number 3, how should I choose an asset protection attorney? You know, this is a kind of a trick question because it's not a question that you're really going to get. They're not going to come to you and say, oh, well, how should I choose an asset protection attorney? But you need to assume that this is a question that they're asking because they're assessing you. They're saying, are you an asset protection attorney? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to an article written by Ike Devji. Ike is really of counsel of Lodmell & Lodmell. He was the if you want to call it this, the first affiliate, because he was the first attorney that we worked with outside of the firm. He was inside the firm, and now he's of counsel and has been for many, many years. He's an excellent asset protection attorney in his own right, and quite a prolific marketer and author. And he wrote a great article that you can find on the Asset Protection Council website. It's up on the screen right now, and it's called, How Do I Choose an Asset Protection Attorney? Key Due Diligence Questions and Caveats for Advisors and Clients. So if you ever feel like you're competing with another firm, or even more important, you're competing with a non-law firm competitor, somebody who's promoting some kind of asset protection that is just a trust mill type of place, this would be an article that you could actually copy the link and send to them. So I'll just quickly run through his points. Are you a lawyer and part of a law firm that are going to keep our discussions privileged? That's huge. And if they're working with a non-law firm, then there's no privileged communication. How many clients have you done this planning for? What's the average net worth of your clients? Where do you work? What are you associated with? Is this a law firm? Is this just some kind of business? How many types of law do you practice? And how long has asset protection been a part of your practice? How many doctors do you protect? He's focusing this around doctors, but it could be any other profession as well. Can you provide professional recommendations? Have you written anything on the topic? Can you provide specific written plan, outlines costs, results, and requirements? And what kind of ongoing support and education do you provide? So this is an article I'll copy and paste sometime when I feel like somebody is a little bit confused as to what they're comparing, that it's not apples to apples. And again, I focus heavily on the fact that it is very important that they use an attorney. I think from just a professional standards standpoint, I mean, attorneys, we have standards, we have bar associations. We do have to keep our level of professionalism and the work at a certain level. And of course, we have an attorney-client privilege. Somebody off the internet who's doing an offshore trust and a Nevis LLC for $6,000-7,000, that's just a document firm. And if that's what the client wants, that's fine. I'm not saying that's not an option for them. I don't think it's certainly it's not something I promote as a benefit to them. I promote it's a benefit to be working with a law firm. So that's how I answer that question. All right. Can I save taxes with my offshore asset protection plan? You will get this question. And this stems back to the same issue that we said before, is asset protection legal? A lot of people have some sense that there are some things that they can do offshore to save taxes. Even sophisticated clients. I get calls regularly saying, I want to set something up offshore. I feel like I'm making enough money where I really should be using some more sophisticated tax planning. And I know Google does it, and I know Apple does it, and I think I should be able to do it. The answer is no. You cannot save taxes with your offshore asset protection plan. And if you refer to some of the other webinars, there's a whole list of them at the Asset Protection Council website where we go over the actual planning itself in detail. You'll see that the asset protection trust is a grantor trust, which means it's tax neutral. It's almost always combined with a limited partnership, which is also a flow-through neutral tax entity. So the answer is that an asset protection plan is not going to save them income taxes, and so the answer is no. If and again, 95% of the clients will just say, "Oh, great, I understand that." 5% of them will want to understand why, and I explain it to them. I explain that Google and Apple really do have a different set of rules they're working with, and here's why. And then 1% of them will just decide that somehow they absolutely have to figure it out, and that's not your client. That's not a guy you want. Somebody who's committed to figuring out how to use some kind of snaky offshore plan to save them income taxes is someone you probably want to pass on as a client. Okay, will my asset, number 5, will asset protection cause me to be audited by the IRS? This is a common question because people are genuinely fearful of the IRS. The answer is no. And we're talking in 20 years of experience with thousands of clients. I have never had a client audited over their asset protection structure. I have had, a handful of clients audited for anything at all. And of those, none of them have been audited regarding their asset protection structure. The reason is the asset protection structure, if done properly, really doesn't pop up on the radar of the Internal Revenue Service as anything special. It's typically a limited partnership, LLCs, and a grantor trust. So there's really nothing for the IRS to target. That is not true if you're using some kind of offshore tax motivated scheme. If that's the case, obviously different story. But we just went over, that's not what we do, and that's not what we want to encourage clients to do. And as long as you're not doing that, you have zero fear that the IRS is going to somehow single you out and target you for an audit because you've set up an asset protection structure. And again, clients are they get it, they understand. This is a biggie. Number 6, I only have $1 million in assets. Do I really need asset protection? Well, the answer is that $1 million important to you? Are you 26 years old and you're making $1 million a month and this is just your first month in business? Well, maybe you have a different trajectory than the guy who's 45 years old. He's been working as a dentist for the past 25 years, and he's got $1 million in assets. So the answer to the question is it important to you as the client? In my experience, 1 million is absolutely enough. Most people I know that have $1 million, and usually we're talking $1 million in protectable assets. They might have some other assets that are already exempt, 401ks and IRAs, qualified plans, maybe a homestead exemption property, maybe some life insurance or some cash value that's already protected. And if they have $1 million in additional assets, stocks, bonds, savings, equity, and other real estate investments, is that worth protecting? Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that my average client is certainly used to be around $1 million. Now it's probably more around $2.5 million of total net worth. And this number is probably a lot lower than most of you would assume. You think asset protection at this very high level is typically reserved for people with 10 and 20 and $50 million. It's not true. It's the $2 and the $3 and the $4 million guys and girls that have been working very hard for their money, took them a long time, 20, 30 years to get it, and they really don't want to lose it. And believe me, something has happened that has caused them to go, wow, I feel a little bit at risk, or something will happen. You can pretty much bank on it. because it's only getting worse. Lawsuits are not slowing down. Ways in which you can get your money taken from you through the legal system are as prevalent as ever. So asset protection is more important than ever. So I would absolutely consider anyone in your client base or who walks in your door with $1 million in assets an absolute asset protection candidate. I would be bringing it up to them on the very first meeting as part of your overall recommendations, and I would be getting them on the phone with me in a conference call to discuss the details of how it would look for them. Number 7, what does an asset protection plan cost, and are there ongoing fees? So this is the big one, right? You bring up asset protection to a client. You give them the general sketch of how it works using a trust, the bridge trust that has the capacity to go offshore in the event of a real event of duress or a threat. Otherwise, it stays domestic and is a very easy trust for you to maintain. And then they say, oh, okay, great. Well, what does this cost? The answer is we know exactly what it costs because the pricing is all fixed. The bridge trust is $23,000. The limited partnership is $6,000. Together, they're $29,000. If the client, how I present it to clients is that you can choose to pay a 50% retainer and 50% when the documents arrive to you for signing, which will all happen within 30 days. Or if you choose to pay up front, there's a 10% discount. The annual fees are $2,100, and there's just nothing you need to hedge around that pricing. That pricing is so fair. It is so right on the money. I really don't get pushback on the pricing. Honestly, I think pushback comes from being unsure yourself if you present the pricing. So my recommendation is be very clear, be very direct, and say, look, at this level, to have offshore asset protection in place, that is an excellent price. Not only that, you don't have any compliance, you don't have Form 3520 because you don't have a foreign trust. You have much lower annual fees than a fully foreign Cook Islands trust or any other jurisdiction because the trustee is not in an active role when you use the bridge trust. The client can be their own trustee. So it is a very, very clean, easy to maintain structure. And frankly, if the client, if that's just out of their range of pricing, then again, it's not a good client for you. But I get very little pushback nowadays on the pricing. And that pricing has not increased for many years for me because I think it's the right price. It is the right amount for the work that's done and for the value being provided. You got to think about it. They're protecting $1 million in assets for what in effect is just a small one-time premium and then an extremely small maintenance fee. And it allows them to sleep at night, to go to work, to deal with their employees, to deal with their customers, to deal with their patients. It's worth every penny. I know it is because my clients tell me it's the best thing they've ever done is get their assets protected. It has changed the texture of their very lives. It really has. And you'll find that when you start talking to clients, it changes the way they see everything, and it makes them just sleep better at night and feel more comfortable and tell their family that they're safe, and it's worth more. We are actually a value provider in this industry. So that's how I answer the question. If you're unsure ever, you can just say, well, it depends on what you need. What I recommend is we get on a conference call with Doug. He can go over it all, and I'll do the dirty work, and I'll have no problem doing it. So that's a big one. You're going to get that question a lot. Okay, number 8. I already have a lawsuit. Can I still set up asset protection? The answer is depends. So if someone comes in and they have a lawsuit, do not turn them away. We need to know more is the answer. We need to understand what the lawsuit is, what the potential upside and downside are, what the chances of the client winning the lawsuit are. Are there any other associated suits? Are there any countersuits? How much assets does the client have? And so it's a full analysis. What I can tell you is that we more than 50% of the time are able to do asset protection. More than 50% of the time we are able to do asset protection because there's lots of ways in which we can reserve for a lawsuit. There's ways that we can exclude an existing lawsuit from the planning. and it still would have a benefit to have the plan. So it's obviously not the ideal moment. The ideal moment is when the client has no issues whatsoever, everything is completely calm, and we can set it up with absolutely nothing to worry about. That's the ideal moment. But if that's not the moment we have and the client is coming in, then we're going to use the moment we have. And if that moment is there's a lawsuit, well, we're going to do an analysis. Again, that's not something that you've done or you're comfortable doing. Get them on the phone with me, and I am very comfortable doing that, and I will help walk the client and you through the process, and we'll make a determination together whether we can do asset protection, and if so, how, under what terms. Okay, number 9. This is a good one because this calls always kind of come in like this. Well, I want to talk about asset protection, but about 5 minutes into the call, they'll say, well, what about in a divorce? And my question back is always, well, how long have you been married? 25 years. And when you got married, did you have any assets? No, we didn't have anything. And so what state are you in? We're in California. So they're in a community property state. And she put me through medical school, and she worked and supported me and paid for it all. Okay, great. So no, the answer is this is not something you can do in a 25-year marriage in a community property state in preparation for a divorce. Basically, my answer to virtually anybody who's already married is unless you can get a postnuptial agreement that clarifies the separate property nature, or you already have a very clear separation of separate property, then you really can't look to asset protection to solve your divorce problems. However, if you're not married and you want to get married and you want to make sure that your assets that you have now are protected from an ultimate divorce that could happen, that's a different story. So in that case, the answer is yes. Asset protection would be very helpful because you would be planning before you're married. You'd be planning with very clearly, completely separate assets. And we would, of course, be counseling you to keep those assets separate, to not commingle them, to not transmute them into community property. We'd probably be counseling you to also combine it with a prenuptial agreement. So you can handle some of the issues that asset protection can't, like alimony and how you're going to handle things. So just be very careful when somebody calls you with a divorce issue. If it's after the fact, especially in those kind of facts where it's a long marriage, stay away from that. There's no percentage in it. It just doesn't make any sense. But if we're talking about a unmarried person that wants to plan for future problems, absolutely. That's something that they can and they should do. And number 10, drum roll, do I lose control of my assets? This is a huge issue. We all know this, right? We all know clients want control of everything forever and ever and ever and beyond the grave and beyond their children's grave. And I mean, they want to control everything. Asset protection works by giving up control. That's how it works, because at some point in the future, you can't have control if the judge has control over you. So asset protection works by the client not being in control, but they don't have to not be in control all the time. They can start out in control. So the way I answer this question is no, you don't lose control unless and until it is to your advantage to lose control. At which point, yes, you'll lose control. But believe me, at that point, when you're looking down the barrel of a lawsuit or a judge or a court or a deposition or a trial, and you're fearing for your life, fearing for your assets, you will be so happy that you're not in control. So you want to be in control now. I understand that, and we can accomplish that. But there will be a point, I shouldn't say will be, there may come a point in the future where you not being in control will serve you. And if that happens, embrace it. And so what I have found is that as long as the clients start out in control, as long as they have control now, and we're not saying, no, in order for this to work, you can never be in control, like we have to take control from you today. As long as that's not the case, and we give them initial control, they're quite fine with addressing and crossing the bridge, so to speak, no pun intended there, later as far as, okay, I'll lose control at a later date. And really, I have very, very few instances where that's not good enough. It's really is good enough because the client is in control. They can be the trustee of the bridge trust. They can be the general partner of the limited partnership. They really do control the assets. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about as far as the bridge trust and the limited partnership, I would refer you back to the Asset Protection Council web page, and I'll just go there and show it to you. It's here, assetprotectioncouncil.com. And you just go to resources, and there's a whole page of case summaries, topic by topic issues, the blog, and then all these legal webinars here. If you choose that, then there's all sorts of webinars on exactly the details. And I would just refer you to these. They're all excellent. They give you lots of details on the bridge trust, on how it works. Right here, adding asset protection to your practice with the bridge trust. That would be a great webinar for you to watch if you're not following totally on those specific topic issues. Because really the key is having a great system that clients can get behind and that's easy for them to say yes to. And the bridge trust really does that. So what do clients want? Well, they want the plan to be effective, they want to have control, they want it to be reasonably priced, and they don't want to have a bunch of compliance. They want it to be simple. So the bridge trust is that. It's offshore protection with domestic simplicity. So it starts its life as a tax-neutral domestic grantor trust. It is also an foreign asset protection trust filed in a foreign jurisdiction. However, for tax purposes, it's a domestic grantor trust. That means no IRS Form 3520 or 3520A, no FinCEN or FACTA disclosures, no offshore bank accounts, no IRS filing requirements, no EIN number. Assets can remain in the U.S. with their current bank. There's no initial foreign trustee in an active role. Clients can begin as the trustee of the trust. So it is a very clean, excellent structure. We've literally done thousands of these. We've had nothing but success from the clients that have just put it in place and slept better, all the way to clients who've had to trigger the trust and defend very real lawsuits back here on the home front. So questions. I try to keep these webinars to half an hour. I know we're all extremely busy, so I really want to make sure. But if you have questions, you can raise your hand or you can just write it into the question box, and I'll answer your questions. If you want to email me questions, please feel free to do that. My email is doug@lodmill.com. We can absolutely, I'll answer any of the emails that you have. There's the website, assetprotectioncouncil.com. If you're not a member of the Asset Protection Council, join. There's all upside for you to join. It doesn't cost anything. It gives you access to all the information. You'll get on our regular update list for all the detailed information. And if you're trying to figure out, is this a practice area you want to add to your practice, I would really encourage that you call me and we have a personal conversation. And we talk about your practice and we talk about how we can do it. It's the best way. We have an incredible amount of support that we can give you. We really do. We are there. We do this every day. It is all we do. So we've seen every question. We really have. We've seen every possible profile of client. We know how to handle it. We know how to handle cases that seem beyond, the fraudulent conveyance issues, all of it. Okay, so some questions are starting to come in. Let me answer them. Should an asset protection analysis be part of my due diligence? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that question. I think an asset protection analysis should be part of your initial intake for sure. You should absolutely look at it. That's something that we can help you to integrate into your client intake. It's really pretty straightforward. You identify how much of their assets are already protected by looking at the exempt assets that they already have. So if they live in a state with a homestead exemption, you obviously would identify how much equity they have in their home, how much the exemption is, and okay, that's how much is protected. Same with the qualified plans and ERISA plans and all of the exempt assets. And then you look at the non-exempt assets and you say, how much are there? If there's upwards of $1 million, even half a million or more, then asset protection should be part of your conversation with that client. And the way I would frame it, if they came in for an estate plan, is that, you know, I'm looking at your estate. We can absolutely plan for the estate to make sure it passes smoothly at death. But I would also like to ask you to consider, do you want to have these assets protected in the event that there's some kind of crisis or there's a lawsuit? And then see what they say. You're going to almost always, I mean, like 95 times out of 100, going to have a client going, well, yeah, I mean, can we do that? And the answer is yes, we can do that. Well, yeah, I would like to know about that. Okay, great. Well, let me tell you. Or let me get you on a call with Douglas Lodmell. He's the co-counsel that we work with asset protection, and he'll go over all of it with you. It's pretty straightforward. If you're not doing that with clients, you're just missing out on a big piece of work that is readily available, that is absolutely something that they want to know about. And so, I mean, it's a freebie. So it's a great question. Yeah, he did clarify the intake form, not part of the due diligence. So yeah, so that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. All right, question number 2. Are you available to conference call in with a client? Yes, absolutely. Every day of the week. I'm available. It is something that I spend most of my time doing. That is what I do mostly, is I talk to clients, I talk to existing clients, and I talk to new clients in what we call an asset protection analysis. That analysis usually takes about 30 minutes. It's not, I'm very efficient at it. If the client has a lot of questions, that might take up to another 30 minutes. So I block an hour for those calls. We usually don't need to take the full hour. Sometimes we do. If I make a recommendation, then I will get out a retainer agreement to you. It's a co-counsel retainer agreement that shows both of our names. It meets the guidelines for our states, for our bar associations. It informs the clients that we will be co-counseling and will be jointly responsible for their case, and that we will be sharing the legal fee. I have never had a client say anything negative about it. It also tells them that this is not costing them any more. Part of the reason that my pricing is fixed is because if a client finds me on the internet and calls me directly or reaches me through an affiliate attorney, the price is the same. There is no premium for the client to have an extra attorney involved. And lately, I've started getting quite a few affiliate attorneys calling me and saying, Doug, I got a client. He actually came to you. He saw your information on the Bridge Trust. Then he found out that you have an affiliate program. He looked in his area, in his state. He found me. He called me. And now I'm calling you to get back on the phone with the client. That's my goal. That's what I want to happen. I want you involved. I want the client to have that local counsel, because there are things that I can't do. I don't do estate planning. I don't do all the business planning, all the stuff that comes along with the client that also needs asset protection. So it is much better for all of us, the client, you and me, if we are if we co-counsel this case. So it is just great when it happens that way. So the answer is yes. That's what I'm available to do. Okay, next question. How much is the affiliate share? Well, if you're already a member, you already know. The way it works is that the initial is 25% co-counsel fee to you. We do all the heavy lifting on the case. So it is we'll do all the work, and you will coordinate with the client. You may or may not sign the documents in your office, depends on the circumstances. So, but you'll see the whole process. Once you get rolling, if you're getting involved and you get to the 5 case point, then that share can go up, and we can discuss that at that point. So my goal is to make this a very real revenue share for you, very real revenue source. I want you guys to see this as something that does not add a bunch of work for you. It's really identify the clients, get them on the phone with us, and then let us do what we do best, which is create the plan and engage the client. This should not be something that is a lot of work on your side. What that amounts to in dollars is around $6,000 for a case. because most of the cases come in around $26,000, because most people do take the 10% discount when given the option, as far as paying half now or half later, or paying it all up front and receiving a 10% discount. Thank you for that question. These are great questions. This tells me that you guys are thinking about the right things. In other words, what does this mean for my practice? And that's what I want it to be. Okay, next question. Do you give any help on marketing, and how do we identify leads and work together? Okay, so yes, we can give you a great amount of help in marketing. We've become very good at it. We understand the internet marketing, we understand traditional marketing, we understand sales very well. So we can do everything from help you to find your own system, to improve the structures that you use, all the way up to and including doing it just for you. And that has turned out to be one of the things that a lot of attorneys have said, look, you could teach me how to do all this. That would be great. I would probably need to hire somebody, and you're going to basically be putting me back to school on this particular area. Or if you'll just do it for me, it'd be a lot better. So if that's something you're interested in, call Benjamin Lodmell. He can be reached directly. He's my brother. He's the director of that program, and he can walk you through exactly how that works. And his email is ben@lodmell.com, ben@lodmell.com, or email me, doug@lodmell.com, and I'll get you connected with him. Great questions. Thank you, guys. Okay. Okay, can I be sued if I don't recognize a potential risk and my client gets sued? In other words, can you get sued for being for helping a client set up an asset protection plan? Well, I've been doing it for 20 years. I've never been sued. I have malpractice coverage if I did get sued. I think the general answer is this is not something I worry about at all. Of course, I'm very selective. I don't take clients that I feel like are exploding bombs as they walk in the door. Clients who walk in the door with their hair on fire, that's not really what I'm looking for. There's plenty of good clients out there. So client selection is good. That's why I encourage you to work with us so that you can use our expertise and our experience to not have to learn on the job. So it's not something I worry about. It's a great question. Of course, that's why we have malpractice insurance, and I hope that's why you also all have asset protection. And if you don't, then you should probably be, your own client. A lot of our affiliates, actually, the first client they want to set up is themselves. And we do that, and we give you your share right away. So in other words, we just give a 25% discount. If you want to set up your own plan, you become your own first client, and I would recommend it. I mean, if you fit the profile of $1 million in assets that are not protected, I would absolutely recommend that you set up your own asset protection plan. One, I think it's extremely important that you protect your assets. You're an attorney, you have lots of risk just in general, from your employees to just living in this society, to your clients. And two, it's just a lot easier to sell when a client asks, and they do ask, well, do you set this up for yourself? And the answer is yeah. And I set it up the exact same way I'm advising you to set it up. I set it up a little differently, kind of special version just for me. No, I set it up exactly like I'm advising my clients to set it up. So I think that's really important, to be able to be your own client. Okay, let me see if there's any more questions that I haven't answered. Okay, no, that's it. If you're not a member yet, send an email to brian@assetprotectioncouncil.com, and he will set you up, get you a profile, get you up on the website. If any of you are going to the NAEPC Estate Planning Conference in New Orleans, I will be speaking November 15th through 17th. It's a big conference. It's a very good group of people. And let me know if you're going to be there. I'd love to break out and have lunch or coffee with you, and just sit down and spend some time together if you're going to be there. If you're just near New Orleans and you just want to, come and meet me, please do come and meet me. That's my last speaking event for this year. The year is almost up. It's been a great year. I'm very happy to be working with all of you, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me directly, doug@lodmel.com. I hope everybody has a great holiday, and we will see you next time.